Translation and commentary by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. When I thus expressed my heartfelt desires unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the lotus-eyed Lord instructed me about His transcendental situation. Purport. The words Paramam Stitim are significant in this verse. The Lord's transcendental situation was not even spoken of to Brahma when the 4 verses of Srimad Bhagavatam 2:9-33-36 were explained. This transcendental situation comprises His dealings with devotees engaged in transcendental loving service, as exhibited at Dwarka and Vrindavan. When the Lord explained His specific transcendental situation, it was meant for Uddhava only. And therefore Uddhava particularly said Mayam unto me. Although the great sage Maitreya was also sitting there, such a transcendental situation is hardly understood by those whose devotion is mixed with speculative knowledge or fruitive activities. The Lord's activities in confidential love are very rarely disclosed to the general devotees who are attracted by devotion mixed with knowledge and mysticism. Such activities are the inconceivable pastimes of the Lord. Om Jnanitivedandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshuvanmilitam Mena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Mukham Kaditivachalam Pangam Langayate Girim Yakripatamaham Vande Shri Gurundin Taranam Vancha Kopadirubhishcha Kripa Sandubhyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhaktivinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Translation once again. When I thus expressed my heartfelt desires unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the lotus-eyed Lord instructed me about His transcendental situation. So Srimad Bhagavatam starts in a unique way, in that in the beginning of Srimad Bhagavatam, it mentions the disappearance of Krishna, which Krishna is the main personality of the Srimad Bhagavatam, and it's very interesting how it starts with his disappearance. And before Krishna disappeared from this world, he instructed his great devotee, Uddhava. And because of Uddhava's special you could say, qualifications of being very advanced in Krishna consciousness, being a pure devotee, a personal associate of Krishna, he revealed certain things, confidential things that he didn't reveal to others. And as Srila Prabhupada points out in the purport, specifically it's the nature of his transcendental pastimes, Krishna's pastimes, with his devotees in Dwarka and Vrindavan. So, in order to understand, in order to be allowed entrance into understanding Krishna's pastimes, and what to speak of participating in them, we have to have the qualifications, specific qualifications, or adhikar. We're praying to Tulsi every morning for a particular adhikar. And that adhikar that particular qualification is we need to develop pure devotion to Krishna. We need to purify our heart. Now, in relation to purifying our heart, sometimes that could be discouraging. Someone may think, I've been trying to purify my heart for a while, and it doesn't seem that my heart's becoming pure. Sometimes people give up. I remember we had one bhakta in San Diego, and he was having a hard time concentrating while chanting Hare Krishna on his beads, japa. And I remember one time he was chanting there, Hare Krishna on his beads, and then he just, at one particular point, I never saw this before, and I don't know if I'll see it again, but he grabbed his japa beads and he just threw them on the ground, the bag. I was like, wow, it's kind of shocking. And the idea is he was so frustrated that he couldn't concentrate, so he just throw them on the ground. It was not advised. But, we may not do that. This devotee, actually, he continued in Krishna consciousness, and he's still a devotee. He's still practicing and a nice person. But sometimes we may become discouraged that I may have material desires. And it doesn't seem that purification's going on as quick as I want to. But what does the Srimad Bhagavatam say about that? There's some water here. Okay. Excuse me. What does the Srimad Bhagavatam say about that? Akama, savakama, va moksha kama, udaraditi, vrena bhakti yogena, yujeta purusham param. That whether one is akama, no material desires, sarvakama, all material desires, or moksha kama, desire and liberation, one should intensely engage in the devotional service of Krishna, engage in Krishna's service. And this particular word, tivrena, is very important in this verse. I'd say, extremely important in this verse. One should engage intensely in Krishna's service, especially within this age of Kali. It's a very intense age to live in. Of course, the Bhagavatam later on says in the 11th canto is actually the best age, because simply by chanting Hare Krishna one can attain all perfection. But nonetheless, it's an intense age. It's an age of which one could become very easily distracted. So therefore one has to intensely engage in the process of devotional service to make rapid progress. Now, within the Bhagavatam, there's an example of someone, history, that had, he was sarvakama. He displayed this to a very high degree. Does anyone remember? You think of Dhruva Maharaj. Okay, that's right. Dhruva Maharaj. The amount of material desire he had was, it's not that he wanted to live in a better place in London or whatever, but he wanted a kingdom greater than his father and his grandfather, going all the way back. He pretty much wanted everything. He wanted to be in charge of everything. And, of course, as we know, he went to the forest. His mother told him he was wondering where he could find God. And his mother said sometimes they go to the forest to look for God. So he went there and he met Narada Muni. And Narada Muni, right, Brahmande Brahmate Kon Bhagavan Jeev Guru Krishna Prasade Pai Bhakti Lata Bij. Narada Muni came and met him. Dhruva Maharaj was looking for God. Although for, you could say, material purposes, still he was looking. So Narada Muni came, and he instructed him in the process of devotional service to chant Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya as the process for God realization. And eventually, he became purified, and he became so qualified that in his meditation on Vishnu, he was meditating, and then Vishnu appeared before him. And he was a young boy, so he wasn't skilled in Sanskrit and all these different things. So Lord Vishnu put his conch shell on his head, and after that, Dhruva Maharaj started offering so many different prayers. And one of those prayers, he says that I was looking for broken glass in the form of a kingdom greater than my grandfather. But now I have your darshan. It's considered to be like Divya Ratna, a divine jewel. And now I'm completely satisfied. I'm completely satisfied. I don't want anything else. So until we get to that point of being fully satisfied in Krishna consciousness, it means that we have work to do, progress to make. And as Rupa Goswami says, that as long as the witches, it's very graphic actually, think of a witch, very graphic, but he says as long as the witches of material enjoyment, the desire of material enjoyment and liberation are dancing in the heart, one cannot relish the full ecstasy of Krishna consciousness. So we need like an exorcism, get the witches out. And as explained in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, that I quoted that verse, Brahmanda Brahmante Kon Bhagavan Jeev, that a fortunate soul, Bhagavan Jeev, a fortunate soul, by the mercy of Krishna, they come into contact with a guru, authentic guru. And by the mercy of that guru, they come in contact with Krishna. They're connected to Krishna. And so this Bhakti Lata Bij, so this seed of devotion is planted within the heart. And eventually it grows and produces the fruit of love of God. But alongside that creeper, there can sometimes grow weeds. Anybody who gardens knows this. Any gardeners here? Okay, we got one, all right. All glories to the gardeners. So, the weeds that grow up. Now, what are the weeds compared to? It's compared to unwanted, desires. So the examples are given, okay, desire for material enjoyment, that's a weed. But desire for liberation, it's a weed. But the thing about weeds is that anyone who's a gardener knows that sometimes weeds, they could look like the creeper, but they're actually not. So can anyone think of some examples of something that looks like Krishna consciousness, or looks like the creeper of devotional service, but is a weed? Can anyone think of some examples, or an example of that? Yes, sir. So desire for that. So you're saying desire for powers, like mystic power, abilities. Okay. Any other? Yes.
Someone may purchase an expensive car.
All right.
I purchased it to bring my spiritual master from the airport to help. But we all know what the purpose is.
We all know what?
The purpose is basically show off.
Oh. All right, so he's saying that one may buy a fancy car, Like what type of car are you talking about? What type of fancy car? Ferrari. Okay, wow. Okay. One may buy a fancy car and say, I'm buying it to pick up my spiritual master. But he's saying that we know why they're buying it, for some personal enjoyment. Right? Or it could be mixed, right? For my guru and any other? Yes.
Doing what we want to do, but then offering it to Krishna.
What can you think of like an example?
So, for example, if I'm cooking something that I like, cook something I like, then offer it to Krishna.
Like what?
Like paneer sabji.
Paneer sabji. Okay, you're cooking paneer sabji. Okay. Yes.
Developing pride in our ability to do a service well.
Yes. That's pride. I have pride I could do a particular service well, so it's a weed, yes. So he was saying, I don't know if everybody heard, I think maybe, but saying you cook something like paneer sabji, but because you like it, you're thinking of yourself, but you cook it, and it's not. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Like what type of position? Who wants to be a manager? I'm just joking. No, it's very important. Management's very important, actually. The temple has to be managed. Departments have to be managed. The society has to be managed. Sometimes it's considered like a thankless task. But yeah, someone could be attached to that position and absorbed in the feelings of that position, and not so absorbed in Krishna. Yeah. Anyone from this side of the room have some example?
You can do externally service, but our motivation can be wrong. We just want to get attention or recognition.
Yes. Can you think of an example?
Maybe, for example, someone. I think it can be anything.
Yeah, it could be anything, that's true. Just like offering obeisances, you could offer obeisances, which is, right, Krishna talks about in the Bhagavad Gita, a very important principle. But one could offer obeisances and in a way like trying to get attention or something. Like, you look how nicely I'm offering my dandavats. Look how devotional I am. Or praying before the deities, look how devotional I am. So, something like that. Any other? Yes. Any mic? He's asking for a mic. Bhakta mic. Mike is coming. Yeah.
I think it's been expressed in maybe already, but attachment for one's service externally, like for instance, I can see it in myself. I was doing the temple commander service.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it had to be done my way.
Mm-hmm.
And not letting people make progress, and always correcting people, I suppose, in a sense, it's discouraging. And so, I had no appreciation that they've got to go through the mill like everybody else, and maybe I would get frustrated. But also the temple commander means temple servant.
Yes.
Somehow it's got a ring to it, hasn't it? And I remember there's that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's all I can think of.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, so there's so many examples. Okay, one last one. Looks like he's eager to... That's fun. That's good. Utsaha.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Thank you, Prabhu. Our personal belongings, say for example, phone, our locker, that we think this is our own, but actually we are using for Krishna service, but we have the behind attachment
I see.
to our phones and
So our phone, our locker, or house, or whatever, we're attached to things, but they're actually Krishna's. Yeah. Yeah, so there's so many examples. One example Srila Prabhupada gives about business. Someone thinks, yes, I'll make lots of money, and then I'll use it for Krishna. But then they engage in making lots of money, and then at one point they just don't use it for Krishna, and then they continue like that, and this way it's a weed. One example, last example, at least for now. I remember hearing there was one devotee in the Krishna Balaram Mandir, Vrindavan. He's part of Kirtan, 24-hour Kirtan. So he said he had a dream one night. And in the dream, he approached Srila Prabhupada in the form of his Murti in the Krishna Balaram Mandir. And Srila Prabhupada in the form of a Murti, he started speaking to him in the dream. And in the dream, Srila Prabhupada said, I'm very pleased that you are engaged in this 24-hour kirtan and that you're utilizing your time like this. But he said, but if you continue to sing to impress women, you'll go to hell. That's what Prabhupada said in the dream. So you could say he woke up, was shocked, right? And tried to change his consciousness. But so you could say it's an example of he's there chanting Hare Krishna. It's the highest activity, but he's doing it to impress women, so it's a weed. So anyways, there's so many examples. And interesting enough, I mean, it's like, when I read it, it's like shocking, actually. In the Chaitanya Charitamrita, Srila Prabhupada writes, Madhya Lila, chapter 19, text 160, he writes about this idea of trying to give the offenses. It's very important, because we read the 10 offenses every morning, we recite them. We all know the 10 offenses. Now, when we first joined the Hare Krishna movement, we don't know the 10 offenses. We don't know the nature of the 10 offenses. But as time goes on, we know what they are, and we know that we should try to avoid them. And there's actually a great expectation, or there's a great expectation. We're expected to at least try to give them up and come into the platform of pure chanting. But he writes here, Srila Prabhupada, quoting Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur in the purport, he writes that if one hears and chants without trying to give up the offenses, one becomes materially attached to sense gratification. So if one hears and chants without trying to give up the offenses, one becomes attached to material sense gratification. I mean, it's like the opposite of Krishna consciousness. And it says that this water that is supposed to be watering the bhakti lata, producing the fruit of love of God, that water actually waters the weeds. And what is that water? The water is the hearing and chanting of Krishna. So if one hears and chants without trying to give offenses, then you have an opposite result. It's very interesting. So there's a great stress on, someone may say, okay, I cannot give offenses. Okay, someone may think that, but at least we should try to give the offenses. it's very, very important point. And another important point that's brought up is that when this creeper is growing, we need to fence it off. And that fencing it off, protecting it from the mad elephant offense of Vaishnava Aparad, that fencing is the fence of pure devotees, in the analogy. And that they protect us from Vaishnava Aparad because they don't engage in it. Jai. Radha Gokulananda ki jai. So, Krishna conscious, Nitya Siddha Krishna Prema Saddhikava Noy Shavanadishuddha Chitta Koi Doi. So, pure love for Krishna is within everyone's heart, and by hearing and chanting about Krishna, that love is awakened. But we have to try to hear and chant, giving up the fences. So here, Uddhava, he's being given such beautiful instructions and confidential instructions by Krishna. And if we want to experience that, if we want to actually understand the instructions and reach higher and higher levels of Krishna consciousness, then the process is very simple, and that is Ata Shri Krishna Nama Dina Bhavedgram Indriya Sevan Mukhi Jiva Daswami Vaspratita, that which is one of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur's favorite verses. That if we engage our tongue in the process of chanting Hare Krishna and taking food offered to Krishna, then what happens? Krishna reveals himself. So in other words, it's a process of revelation. Whereas the famous saying goes, one cannot storm into the kingdom of God. It's a process of revelation. So does anybody have any question or comments? Yes.
Hare Krishna, Balaram Prabhu, thank you for the class.
Thank you.
Just had a question about this thing, about being inattentive or offensive while chanting. So why is it that why does it actually happen? When we're inattentive, why is it that the weeds grow rather than the creeper of devotion growing? And it sounds like spiritual life is like I've heard this before. It's like a razor's edge.
Yes.
So so we can actually get the adverse effects. So why does that happen again? I didn't quite understand the why.
All right.
Chanting Hare Krishna inattentively or offensively causes weeds to grow.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, spiritual life, it's said to be a razor's edge. So everybody knows, right? You shave your head, and it could be clean, right? Clean cut, or if you're not careful, especially using a straight edge razor, then there could be some problems, bloodshed. I remember there was one devotee, one brahmachari. We went to India together, and he was trying to haggle with the barber in Vrindavan. So don't try it. Anyways, but he's from America, and it was already a cheap haircut, and he's trying to get him to cut it down more, amount of rupees. I don't know how much it was, $2 or something. He's trying to get $1, I don't know, American dollar. So this devotee, he was haggling with him, brahmachari, and then the barber said, "Okay, fine." And he said, "Sit down." So he sat down and he shaved his head. And later on, the devotee told me, he said that was the most painful haircut I ever got in my life. I don't know what the barber did, but so razor's edge. it could be clean cut, or it could cause bloodshed. So spiritual life is like that. That if we follow properly, then we get the result, and if we don't follow properly, then we have adverse result. Now, when we say, well, why is it that by chanting Hare Krishna you get adverse effect, right? You don't get the full effect. You get what seems is the opposite effect. Well, one thing is that the holy name is considered to be Chintamani Nam, which means Krishna, he fulfills everyone's desires. Or as Prabhupada says in the Sri Upanishad, I always like this term, but Prabhupada said, Krishna is the self-sufficient philosopher fulfilling everyone's desires since time immemorial. So Krishna fulfills our desires. So if one is so adamant, hearing, for example, we hear, it's not that we hear every day, okay, these are the 10 offenses. You say, well, why are we reading those? So we know what to commit? No, we're reading those so we know what to avoid. And we read them every day. So over time, if one's so adamant to be attached to committing the offenses, then Krishna may fulfill our desires, material desires. But still, it says that in the Bhagavatam, I think it's in the 11th canto, and also mentions in Chaitanya Charitamrita, that Krishna fulfills our desires in such a way is that he may fulfill material desires, but then at one particular point, he fulfills them in such a way as we don't want them anymore. And it's even said that sometimes if somebody, so that's some point about that. So the idea is we should try to understand theoretically first, right, and then understand the need to give up the offenses and not fall into the trap of getting really the opposite of Krishna consciousness. Does anybody have any other? Yes.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Thank you.
I was wondering, you were mentioning that the weeds and the creepers, they're very alike. So practically, what is how to really discern? How to detect. Yes, how to detect.
All right. Yeah, we have to become expert gardeners. Be able to detect. Especially in the beginning, of course, what do we mean when we say beginning? Beginning of our Krishna consciousness, but especially in earlier stages, and throughout, not just early stages, but throughout, we keep close association with devotees. And that close association, they will detect, and they'll tell us, right? Devotees are very merciful. So they'll point it out to us, that hey Prabhu, you're running around all day and night, engaged in Krishna service, and you need to chant your rounds, for example. You need to give proper time to chanting and studying and so on. So they'll point it out. Generally, that we always hear in these japa seminars and so on that when you chant japa, when you chant on your beads, you shouldn't do anything else. And of course, there's a lot to do. You could clean, you could whatever. There's so much to do, right? But it's generally advised that you just chant. And there was one brahmachari, I remember he was out in the temple and he was watering. It was like early in the morning. It was like 5 in the morning or something. He was out there watering with a hose in the temple garden. And then he was chanting on his beads, like he had his hand in his bead bag, and he was watering. And then this Prabhupada disciple, he came out and he saw him doing that, and he said, "Hey Prabhu, are you watering the weeds or the creeper?" And then the brahmachari kind of stopped, and he put the hose down. He said, "Okay," and he'd chant, attentively. So that's an example of somebody detecting a weed and then pointing it out. So devotees do that. They'll point out. So the spiritual master, shiksha gurus, temple commanders, senior devotees, senior brahmacharis, they'll point it out. But we have to be open to that. And that's where humility comes in. If we're too proud, then, we just put the walls up. Hey, And then there's like problems. Because it's very interesting to understand pride's an enemy, not a friend. We shouldn't embrace pride, but reject it like an enemy, because it is. Like Raghunath Das Goswami says, when one's on the path of bhakti, there's thugs that come out in the form of lust, anger, greed, pride, etc. And then they get a rope and they tie the person, try to drag them off the path of bhakti. And it says that the way to save oneself, or we don't really save ourselves, but you call out to Krishna, call out the devotees, and they'll come and save us. But one of those is pride. So if we embrace pride as our enemy, it's like you're telling pride, okay, I'll just take a rope and drag me off the path. So we have to be open to being corrected and having our weeds pointed out. Of course, it could be very unpleasant, but still we have to be open to that. And also through introspection, through reflection, we could think, at the end of the day, what mistakes I made, how I could progress, so on. Does anybody have any other questions? Yes.
Hare Krishna. Thank you for. I'm just wondering, you're mentioning about chanting the pure holy name, free from offences, and we also hear this intermediate stage of Namabas. So perhaps could you just sort of clarify what actually is Namabas? Is there still offences there, or compared to what is Shuddhanam? Yeah,
there's still offences there. Like Abas means like shadow, so it means there's offences being committed. You have the body and then you have the shadow, right, and the sun. So it's connected. It has, like chanting the holy name in a shadow way. It has value, and is, say, part of the process until one gets to pure stage. But it's a shadow, and again, it's very important. Because the tendency in material existence is just to be very superficial, like everything's on the external level. Like what's racism, for example? It's just we're seeing the body, no soul, just bodily concept. And people also take that into religion, Christianity, of course, right? Christianity, people, okay, thou shalt not kill. Prabhupada stressed that. I believe in Jesus Christ, I'm saved. I don't have to do anything. So that's a superficial level. Or Islam, it's the same principle. Or Hinduism. Or Hare Krishna. So the idea is that we have to really go deep into the process and not just on the external platform. And Rupa Goswami talks about that, going deep, not doing things mechanically. So, but shadow, Abbas means shadow. It's a shadow of the name. Is there a question on this side? Was there a question? I don't know. I thought I saw a hand up. Maybe not. Any other questions or comments? Anybody? Yes.
Hare Krishna. What Jesse was on about pointing out the weeds, do we not have to be careful of causing uproar as well?
While we're pointing out the weeds of someone?
Yeah, so how do we...
That's a good point. Because you say, I see somebody's weeds, and how do I point them out without being offensive? It's an interesting point. Vaishnava aparad. Says there's 6 aparads you could commit to a Vaishnav. One is to kill a Vaishnav. That's pretty obvious, aparad. But one is to think ill of a Vaishnav. One is to not be happy when seeing another Vaishnav. It's interesting, this one about not feeling happy. Because a lot of the times, for example, if you have a very good friend and you haven't seen him for a while, and once you see them, you're very happy to see them, right? You were thinking well of them, you were speaking well of them, and then you're happy to see them. So a lot of the times when we see another Vaishnava, we may not be thinking well of them, we may not be speaking well of them. When we see them, we're not happy to see them. So we should see Vaishnavas as friends, because they are. We're only friends, really. And there's other offenses, verbal, there's different stages. So, and if you look at Bhaktivinoda Thakur, I believe it's in Harinam Chintamani, but he describes the different offenses, or the different reasons why you could criticize a Vaishnava. It says for lower birth, bad birth, for previous sinful activities engaged in, and also he mentions temporary fall downs or sinful activities that devotees fall in Krishna consciousness while they're practicing bhakti yoga. So reading all those different reasons why we shouldn't criticize Vaishnavas, sometimes you wonder, well, what's left? What is the basis for criticizing Vaishnavas? It doesn't seem like there's much. Now but there is basis of criticizing, and that's the business of the guru, that's the business of senior devotees, that's the business of persons who are farther along the path and who have Diksha disciples or Shiksha disciples, or they're in some type of situation in which they have to criticize or they have to find the faults in others. And so then the question is, okay, well, how do you do that? Well, and in many cases, it's actually, we don't have to think about doing that. It's not really our service, we don't have to think about it, which is a blessing. But if it is our service, and we do have to, then, we have to do it in a Krishna conscious way, and we have to be really interested in helping the person. There shouldn't be any mixed reasons why we're correcting somebody or criticizing somebody. And therefore we have to have introspection that why am I doing this? Which ultimately comes back to purity. So if one doesn't have that purity, then it could become a little messy or ugly.
One last thing then. So, do you know if we come into Krishna consciousness and we may have caused an offence, and may have forgotten about it, does that weed eventually die out, or have we got to? So I know we've got to beg for forgiveness, haven't we?
To a devotee?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, in it's brought up that Madhuri Kadambani, a very beautiful book by Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, he talks of when we offend a Vaishnava, we should go to that Vaishnava and beg forgiveness and sincerely, because again, and Madhuri Kadambani, you could say, hey, well, I went to the Vaishnava and I begged forgiveness, but was it sincere? Or was it just like, hey, I followed the rules in the book, absolve me of my offenses? But it has to be sincere. It has to be heartfelt. You really mean it. So to offer, to ask for forgiveness, and then to offer some service. It's not just forgiveness, but it's service, active, something. I don't know. We give them a gift, we give them prasadam, or some type of. And still, it says sometimes that Vaishnav may not forgive you. Interesting. And Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur doesn't say anywhere that, that Vaishnav doesn't forgive you because he's not advanced. Doesn't mention anything like that. He just says a Vaishnav may not forgive you. And you could say, well, why wouldn't a Vaishnav forgive you? Well, one, was it really heartfelt? Was it very sincere? Or maybe he's just angry. Take some time to forgive. I don't know. Who knows? There's different reasons. They're persons. But it says if the Vaishnav doesn't forgive you, then you could take shelter of the holy name. So that you first try, and then if it doesn't, then you take shelter, and then that will absolve one. But we approach humbly and ask for forgiveness, and so. Yes. There's a mic there.
Taking shelter of the holy names mean if you made an offence and you can't approach, you can't resolve it any other way, then taking shelter of the holy name means incessant chanting of the holy name, and that means in between sleeping, bodily maintenance, whatever, then you have to chant incessantly. And then you'll know that it's effective, because then that disturbance in the heart will start to go.
Yes. Kirtaniya Sadahari, it's always advised we chant as much as possible, all the time. But taking shelter of the holy, trying to give the offenses, chanting sincerely, as much kirtan and japa as possible, and really praying. Please allow this offense to subside, to go away.
And just mentioning about offences with with japa, is when I joined the movement, I used to see devotees going up and down the corridors in the manor and in Birmingham at night chanting japa, pace up and down chanting, and also devotees knew that if you did a Harinam in the evening, and where everyone was focused, the next morning your japa would be very focused.
Harinam in the evening.
Yeah, Harinam in the evening. Or even just that day, but especially in the evening. So we come back from a Saturday night Harinam, and which say to even have to be leading it. And the next day your japa's really focused.
Yeah, the ecstasy carries over.
Yeah.
Yeah, one devotee was saying about reading Krishna book or other pastimes, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. If we read in the evening, then in the morning it carries over and into japa. That experience, remember, pastimes we're reading. Or we go and we see Krishna for the last arti, so we could go to sleep thinking of Krishna. So that's why it's important, the whole evening program. And if one follows the evening program here or their own evening program, but the principle's there to try to do something in the evening, Krishna conscious, so we carries in the nighttime and then in the morning. Right, keep the momentum going. All right, any last? Yes. she has a question here. Or comment.
Hare Krishna. The offenses can also be in the mind, no? Especially if we do them in front of the deities. What can we do if our mind and imagination leads us to commit unexpressed mental offenses? Because the mind sometimes don't have a point, but travel a lot, no?
Uh-huh.
And is not the offenses is not in a particular devotee or person, but is an imagination travel, for example.
Yeah.
And is not expressed, no,
Mm-hmm.
completely.
It's in the mind.
Yeah.
Well, the mind. They say like train of thought. Mind, that's the nature of the mind. It likes to twirl over the universe, or in the realm of offenses also the mind could be offensive. So it says in this age we don't really get reaction for the offenses that are committed in the mind. Now, of course, that's not an excuse to just keep on committing offenses in the mind, but it's a special concession for this age. In previous ages, you'd actually get the reaction. Whatever offense was in your mind, you'd get the reaction. But in this age, there's not a reaction. But still, we have to be careful that because thinking, feeling, willing, the offenses in our mind could eventually come out in our activities or our words. So, therefore, there's a whole principle of mind control. It means that somebody else isn't controlling your mind. Well, Krishna's controlling your mind, but mind and sense control, Goswami, right? Vacho vegam, manasa kroda vegam, jiva vegam, adorapasta vegam. So all the urges of the senses and minds included, we learn how to control those. So we engage our mind, right? Savaya mana Krishna, that we engage our mind in thinking of Krishna. We pray to Krishna, and over time our mind becomes more pacified, less out of control. It becomes more controlled, more pacified. And those offenses gradually dwindle over time. So that's why Rupa Goswami, he's mentioning patience, right? Utsaha nishchaya daya tat tat karma. We have to be patient. And that will go away. But again, therefore the principle, we have to try. Pray, try. But so I hope that.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, one last thing from Prabhuji.
Srimad Bhagavatam, chapter 19, text 1, when King Parikshit, he hears that he's caused offense to the sage, and he hears about this, that he's been cursed. And Prabhupada says that he was overwhelmed with this urge to put a snake around the sage's neck, and he sincerely regretted.
Yes, very important point.
And he took the punishment. He says, no matter what, I shouldn't have done it. So, and then Prabhupada says in the purport that if you sincerely regret, the regret acts as a fire in the belly or the mind of the offender.
Yes.
And this regret is like a fire. It destroys the sinful reaction.
Yes.
And because he accepted it, the Srimad Bhagavatam was spoken.
Yes.
And he carried on no matter what until then I can't remember what happened next. But anyway, he sincerely regretted it. And then, oh yes, everybody had come to see him fast till death. And they couldn't imagine that he could do that. But he, in a way, though Krishna was behind it, it is said, Prabhupada, he accepted the punishment. And so all these people saw that he was such a great soul, but he was still going to fast anyway. He knew it was offensive. So then the Srimad Bhagavatam had to be spoken, because Sukadev Goswami, Krishna saw his sincere regret, but he was willing to fast till death, even though it was out of his character. He wouldn't know that. And then Sukadev Goswami, at that point, was sent to speak the Srimad Bhagavatam. I don't know if you understood what the point I was...
Yeah, very important point. The point that if one commits an offense, if they regret it, this regret acts as a fire to burn up the reaction. That's a very important point. So thank you for bringing that up.
And also accept a correction.
Yeah, accept.
Even though you are, it's your fault, not your fault.
Yes.
It's just accept it.
Yes.
What's the point of arguing?
Yes.
Just make things worse.
Thank you. All right, Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Mitago Primanande Adhirabo.